Hi, my name is Brad Siff. I'm the founder and president of BioWave. I'd like to welcome you to our 15th webinar. Our guest lecturer today is Kirk Brote from Kinetic, and the topic is on BioWave Plus. It's our healthcare provider digital experience platform. I'd like to remind you that at the end of the presentation, we have a live Q&A. So if you'd like to submit a question, please go down to the lower portion of your screen, click on the Q&A button, and type in your question for us, and we will be happy to answer any question live at the end of the webinar. So with that, I'm very pleased to introduce to you Kirk Brote.
Brad, thank you very much for the introduction. I'm very excited to get to talk to everybody today about the BioWave Plus application, specifically the healthcare provider experience as part of the digital experience platform. My name is Kirk Brote. I'm a user experience designer. And really what that means is instead of thinking I always know the right answer as to what someone needs or wants, I'm dumb enough to just ask them the question. What would work best? Or actually, a lot of my research starts as, tell me a story about your day. What's it like seeing someone in the clinic? And so using that methodology, I collect a lot of information about where the things are easy, where they're hard, and all the places in between. Throughout my career, I've worked with a lot of clients in the healthcare space on a lot of different problems, from rare genetic diseases to medical device design. And so today we get to talk about the BioWave Plus application. And now really when we think of the BioWave Plus as a platform, part of that is because, as you can see from the images on the screen, there's a mobile or tablet experience that's really designed to be used either on the go or in many cases in situ, in the clinic, in the training room, where you're working with a patient or athlete. Sort of behind the hand, if you will, on screen, you'll notice that there's also a desktop version. And that's because not everyone can use mobile applications in the clinic, in the lab, or in the training facility. So we wanted to make sure you could still see reports, you could still monitor compliance with therapies and treatments. So really what we've tried to create is an experience to help your patients stay on track with their treatments. Because as anyone in the world of pain management knows, staying ahead of your pain is the best place to be. It's also a new experience for you to let you see details about treatment compliance. Are they using it for the right number of times a day, for the right amount of time a day? And you can see that and communicate with those that aren't. And again, designed for phone, tablet, desktop use. Again, when we talk about this as a digital experience platform, not just an application, it's because we have different modes or experiences for different users. So we have a guest user mode because we know that once a BioWave device is in someone's house, they talk about how effective it is and other people want to use it. Well, we want to make sure that the person using the treatment gets the alerts and reminders. Other people, if they want to create an account, they can, or they could just use it as a guest user. Additionally, if you never want to create an account and just use it as a guest, you can. It still has that modality. But really, we're here today to focus on the physician athletic trainer app, so that healthcare provider space. And now the first question I would ask is, well, are you a healthcare provider or an athletic trainer? How do you know what I need? And my response would be, great question. And really, it's because the process that we use to discover this is fairly straightforward and fairly simple. And it kind of boils down to, why don't you find some of the people who do this for a living every day, day after day, and talk to them about what it's like. Why did they get involved in pain management? What drove them and made them want to discover that or work in that space? How do they work with patients? And in this case, we talked to 14 different clinicians and athletic trainers with an alphabet soup of letters behind their name for certifications and all sorts of, professional credentials over a course of 9 hours. And as you can see on the page, we tested 84 concepts. What does that mean? Well, a concept could be something like, hey, read these two statements. Which one do you find more agreeable? Which one do you like more? Which one do you respond more to? Or it could be something like, hey, here's a list of 10 things other clinicians have said they care about. Can you rank them in the order that's important to you? And in doing so, it helps us uncover, well, geez, across the board, the number one problem for like 12 out of the 14 people was this. Well, that's not just interesting. That's something that we should look to see if we can provide a remedy for, or a relief to, or put something in the world that allows management or making that problem better. And so that really kind of leads us to these research findings. And so, we only take the top ones because those are the ones that are the most painful to the most amount of people. And so there are more than these. There are different ones than these. But if we boil down the core things that we got out of the research, number one, give me a better measure of pain. I'm still working on a scale of 1 to 10 that is roughly unchanged from the dawn of humanity to today. And we've changed, we've used colors, we've used faces, but essentially how much does this hurt is still the sort of lever for pain management. The next thing that clinicians really cared about was, we went through this, we used it in the clinic. I put it on them. I said, hey, remember where we put these pads, look at it, see it, right? You got this. So when you go home, you can do it. And they run through the therapy in the clinic or the training room, and they turn the intensity up. Is that too much? Can you feel it? Is that right? And so it's very, very customized to that individual. And so when we say we looked at the pain points and we say, help my patients use the device correctly, well, so if we took a picture of where the pads are on this person, this patient in the clinic at this time, when the clinician or therapist put them on, they're in the right place. If they could look at that, they'd always know where the right place is on their body. If we recorded the intensity changes over the course of that session, we'd know exactly how to play it back so that it got to the right intensity. Because as we know, people like, whether it's this, whether it's exercise, people will stop lower than the threshold of what they can because their brain will tell them to stop. Ooh, that feels tingly and weird. That I don't know. Okay, I'll stop there. Well, that's not what happened in the clinic. And whether you're being honest about that or you don't remember, our findings with patients were, we really tried to pay attention, but it's really hard to remember everything when I got back home. Is the pad in exactly the right location? I mean, they're on either side of my knee, I guess, but is it the right place to get the meniscus? Is it the right place to get the ACL? How, whatever it is you're trying to treat. The third thing was, let me know when my patients are not using BioWave. Like anything else in any other treatment, if it doesn't work the first time, people are hesitant to continue. And they're like, I tried it once. I put it in the drawer because it didn't do everything in the world for me. Okay, well, maybe you're one of those people who needs 2 or 3 treatments for it to build up, for it to really hit, full efficacy. So let's manage the experience around that so that that, you may be one of the people who doesn't feel relief after the first treatment. And then, like everything else in the clinician or the athletic trainer's world, I am super busy. You can't believe how busy I am, how many people I need to see on a daily basis. So fit this into my workflow or don't bother. And so you'll see there was a lot of thought that went into how can we get the most impact for users with the minimal amount of interference into how they actually operate on a daily basis. And so to that end, the biggest thing we did is we created the notion of a therapy. And really all this is the record of how a treatment should be run. How should the intensity change over how much time? So essentially the sort of workflow, if you think of it that way, is you're in the clinic, you've got a patient with you, therapy room, you have a patient with you, and you say, hey, we're going to put you on the BioWave. So we're going to teach you how to use it this first time. You put the pads on them where they're supposed to be, and you say, hey, remember these for when you go home and you're not here and you're doing it on your own. And then they run it. You go through all those questions. Hey, is this intense enough? How does it feel? Can we turn it up? You go through all that, and when you end your treatment, rather than it just stopping, there's a save button. And if you hit the save button, you can put the patient's email in and say, hey, we want you to get the BioWave Plus application. And when you sign in with your email, The recording of this treatment session, complete with the picture we're about to take of the pads on your body, is then sent to your phone. So later on, you can just tap it and hit play, essentially, or start in this case, and it runs itself. You can see the picture of where the pads should be on your body, not someone else's body, not a generic body. And the reason that was important, especially in the athletic world, not that clinicians don't deal with it in the same way. We heard from athletic trainers, I have a 327-pound offensive lineman with an ankle injury coming in a half an hour. A half an hour after that, I have a 107-pound woman on the women's gymnastics team with the same ankle injury. Now, the pad placement for those people is very, very different and is not the same as it is on the generic pad placement guide. So being able to take a picture of where the pads go, so you know they're doing it right at home, being able to know that the intensity is being controlled based on what you said in the clinic, allows you to understand that the patient sees and runs not just a therapy, but the correct one for the right amount of time at the right intensity. And you've done everything possible to make sure that it's recreating the experience in the clinic. They're not dialing back the intensity a lot. They're not stopping at 10 minutes early because you can see compliance. And so as we start to dig into this mobile clinician trainer experience, and we'll look at mobile first, we'll see desktop towards the end. We really start with mobile first because, you could run this on your device in the clinic, record, use the application to interact with the device, record it, and send it to the patient. So it has a complete experience. When you're using the application and you're controlling that operation mode, if you change the intensity on the device, it will report back to the app. So if you had the person, even if you were holding the device in your hand or the phone or application in your hand, and you had the patient with the device, what they do on the device is still going to get back to that phone as a part of the recording of that specific therapy. But digging in, when we look at that home page for this clinician user, what we're seeing is compliance. How many active patients do you have? How many are compliant, not compliant, or have abandoned therapy? And there's definitions around all of those. How many treatments do you have to miss before you've abandoned therapy? And those are all sort of definitions that we have in the system. Below that, you can see the people who have abandoned or are non-compliant with treatment. And then there's a little zone below that, top therapies and bottom therapies by adherence, because this welcome page for a clinician is really sort of a dashboard. How's the system functioning? How are my patients doing overall? Are they using the tool? Are they not? And again, you can see that right on that home page. If you go to the second screen, you could run a treatment and then save it as a therapy, or you could create a therapy and add a new one and actually define it by tapping each of the blocks and entering an intensity. So there's a variety of ways to do this, but the most common way we imagine for clinicians is to run a therapy and then save it. And that very first field is patient email. And when you save this, you can go ahead and send it to them. You'll notice there's the picture of the pad placement at the bottom. When you come in, that's actually replace this with a real image. And when you tap it, if you've never done it before, it'll say, hey, can we access your camera? And if you allow it, you can take a picture of the pad placement and that'll show up right in that box. So when the person goes home, they can see where on my knee, where on my elbow, where on my shoulder, or if it's on their back and they're having someone help them, hey, take a look and here's where the pad should be on my back. And so the goal was to try and help ensure users use the device as correctly as possible. Image 3 here is for reminders, because back on the first one we saw, and a little bit below where that reminder sent box is, it says send treatment reminder. So with one tap, you can send a treatment reminder to any patient that is non-compliant or abandoned treatment, and it's just going to send an alert through their app that says, hey, your clinician noticed you're not using this tool or treatment. Come back in and let's get you back on your treatment regimen. And then sort of the last piece here is when you think about that, give me a better definition or better understanding of pain. Well, being able to run reports and see how pain changes for people over time, and not just one person, but a group of people over different timelines. So we built in a reporting engine to look across the people you're responsible for and say, show me the information about how they're using it and how it impacts them. But to drill into the homepage, again, active patients, a highly scannable top-level compliance, top abandoned or non-compliant patients, single-click access to treatment reminders. The top and bottom therapies are there because in the notion of that, give me a better idea or better understanding of pain. Showing you these allows you to see, as a clinician or a therapist or a trainer, patterns within the data. Why is it that, bilateral neck or cervical pain has the lowest therapy adherence? Are we doing something wrong? Are we not using it correctly? Is there something else that could be done to help the efficacy of that? But if you don't know that it's the bottom, you don't know there's a problem. Quadriceps pain, probably have a lot of it in the athletic world. We treat a lot of it. We're good at treating it. So it's very highly adhered to, or people follow it. The therapies page. So when I'm, as a clinician, my default view is to see my patients, and I can filter this list by status. I just want to see anyone who's abandoned treatment, and I can see what the username is, what the therapy is, time, max intensity, its status, and then information on when it was created, last used, etc. So to create a new therapy, we ran a session, it's complete. We click a save button, and on the session complete window at left, I can see the details. What was my max intensity? How long was it? And it would also allow me to input my, my standard pain ratings and all that sort of post-session information. In this case, though, we have a higher goal, and that's to save this as a therapy. So we hit the save button. It pops up this save as a therapy window where we can put the user's email in. We see the intensity ramp. And, because a lot of times after a session is run, the question comes up, well, was it, did we get to where you need to be intensity wise? And well, looking back, maybe we could have turned it up a little bit more. Okay, well, as the person creating this, I could tap any of those blocks and I could set the intensity up a little bit higher. I could move it a little bit lower. And then I can take a picture of the pads on the body before we disconnect it, and we have it for posterity and for when they go home. When I go to operate this, and you'll see in manual operation, you also have save as a therapy because, maybe you ran it for 20 minutes, you plan to run it for 30, but you only had 20, you still want to be able to save it and reuse it. Because the thing is, users can create their own therapies as well. Because every time I go cycling, my lower back is on fire for 2 days, and I use this one BioWave routine that I've developed. And so as a user, I can also save it for myself. But this way, you have to end the therapy session short. You hit the save button, and it's going to go ahead and bring you over to that save page. You can start your treatment, pause it, stop it, toggle it. You can get help with pad placement. So again, it's going to bring you that information about where the pads go. And then, depending on whether you're running a therapy or just using manual operation, the timer may count down or it may count up. If you're running a therapy, it counts down because we know it's 20 minutes. We know it's 30 minutes. If you're just running it manually, we don't know how long you're running it. So we show you how long you have been running it rather than how much time left. And that's really sort of a mental switch that we've discovered users make in those two things. Like if it's a treatment, I expect it to count down until the end. If it's manual operation, I expect it to count up and show me how long it's been running. So, information about that. The intensity at the current moment. And again, the big things for users are prominent: duration, intensity, the plus and minus, make it go up, make it go down. And additionally, those are geared after user testing to be at the bottom of the UI because that's where users wanted them because they could just hit it with their thumb. And so as a thing they were going to press a bunch of times potentially during operating the device, just to move it, oh, I want to go up a little higher. Oh, no, maybe down a little. That was going to be the most frequent thing that happened. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible. The ramp just allows you to visualize where you've been. Am I higher or lower than what I was? Lastly, in terms of screens, we'll talk about reports briefly. And, I can mark them as favorites, good stuff. Reports exist because we want to be able to show you, not just who's adhering to therapies, but usage versus pain. So individual daily sessions, how are people using it? And is their pre and post treatment pain going down versus average pre and post treatment pain? So really making comparators to help understand how your patients are doing against not just as a group or an individual, but against all of the people within the anonymous population of the data world that are using the same therapy for the same location and for the same treatment. Lastly, we mentioned it earlier, it's not just the mobile application. There's a web component as well, where if you want to log on and you can only use a desktop or something like that in the office, or maybe you want to do it from home and you don't want to do it on a mobile device. Well, there's a desktop experience as well that is full featured and really has all of the same functionality, with the exception of being able to control the BioWave device. Based on user feedback, no one said, I really want to be able to control the Bluetooth device from my desktop machine. I want to be able to log in and see reports and compliance and things like that. I want to check from home on a Saturday. Or, that was more the usage that people talked about. And so we said, okay, so it's a bigger view of reports. It lets you get to see a little bit more information, more detail, more easily than you can on your phone, just given the real estate and the space available. To summarize, the BioWave Plus application was really designed to help clinicians understand treatment compliance. I mean, therapies exist to help you with treatment compliance because if it's easier, more people do it. It's designed to help with treatment compliance because if they do it right, it'll be more effective, more people will do it. And so really, from the clinician, from the healthcare provider space side of it, what we really wanted to do was to help make sure your users or your patients, your athletes are successful using the device. They stay ahead of their pain. They achieve the benefits that the BioWave device gives. And they do it in a way that makes it easy. And so alerts and notifications, there's too much in the app to show everything, but it's a mobile application. So yeah, when you run a therapy and you run that treatment, if your treatment regimen is chronic pain, then 3 hours from now, hey, it's time for your next treatment. We did it a little bit more thoughtfully because at 2 hours, we give you an alert that says, hey, you could open that window. You could do a treatment anytime you want, but just know the window of acceptability is now. And again, there's those treatment scheduling by regimen type. Is it chronic pain? Is it acute pain? What happens on day 1, day 2, day 3 in terms of treatments? And so that allows us to create a personalized space for the user using the BioWave Plus application. And again, all of this is designed to make sure that users use it the way that you wanted them to so that they maintain compliance, they receive the benefit of it. Additional things are, hands-free use. I can put the pads on my knee. I can go for my walk, whether it's just a walk outside or it's walking on a treadmill, and it can make the intensity go up and down, and I don't ever have to worry about it. It is just going to happen automatically. And if I want to, I can manually intervene, and I can do that via my phone, which I probably have out because, a lot of people seemingly have phones out these days, or, that wouldn't be something uncommon. But anyway, you could use that phone to make it go up and down based on the ramp that's pre-existing. And for you to have one-tap access to send non-compliant patients treatment reminders. And I don't know why you're not using it at this point. Maybe life got busy. Maybe it didn't work when you tried it in your mind. But hey, this is just a note from your doctor. And what we discovered was the application can send reminders all day long. And it's good stuff, but it's an application reminder. It's for convenience. To be serious about it, when it comes from your doctor, when it comes from the person who prescribed the device to you, or it's more official, it has more weight, and users really identified with, oh, not that someone's looking over my shoulder, but oh, my doctor said I should do this. I should be doing this. And it was much greater in their minds than just the treatment reminder. And that's the end of my content for the webinar for clinicians, and we can open it up for questions.
Kirk, thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation and walking us through the provider experience of our new BioWave Plus app. My name is Anya Kone. I'm Director of Marketing at BioWave, and I will be facilitating the Q&A session today. So thank you for joining us, everyone, and please use the button at the bottom of your screen to ask your questions. We are also joined by our Chief Digital Health Officer, Stu Heilsberg. Welcome, Stu. So we will have Kirk and Stu answering your questions today. So let's begin. We have already a few questions in our Q&A. First question, can we track patients' compliance via the application? And if so, does it require that the user is actively using the app during treatment, or only that the app and device are?
I think it looks like some of them might have gotten cut off, but I think
Yes.
I get the gist of the question, right? And that is, for tracking patient compliance, yes, the therapy and the BioWave app need to be connected for that full loop, if you will, or to close the circle so that the clinician gets updated that treatment took place.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That makes
good
sense.
question.
Thank you, Kirk. Another question. Can athletic trainer still track their athlete's progress if they are using BioWave in conjunction with other devices and or therapies like ice or heat applications?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that one because that's another great one. And, it is very rare to treat pain, especially chronic pain or, acute pain, with a single line of therapy. And so we do see combination lines of therapies or treatments. And so within the BioWave Plus application, we have the ability when you start a treatment or start operation to indicate if you are using any additional, whether it's a medicine, are you taking Advil and Tylenol? Are you using ice? Are you doing yoga? Because one of the goals, again, toward that kind of understanding pain better, as we collect data from different treatments and therapy use over time, we can start to see things like, oh, actually, you know what, if you combine this with yoga, we actually see a higher rate of descent in pain. People are reporting less pain with that combination. So yes, you can still track compliance. And additionally, you can add in sort of what would traditionally be confounding factors, if you will, in terms of efficacy. But with the collection of more data, we're able to help you make understanding of how those different treatments, therapies, or medicines impact.
Thank you.
Good question.
Yeah, all good questions. And another one, if something goes wrong with the device during treatment, does the app provide troubleshooting ideas to get the device up and running again?
Yeah, and absolutely. I think one of the nice things is there aren't a million things that go wrong when people are using the BioWave device. We see things with a pad because I was moving, or a wire or something, but those are all scenarios that the application is designed to see and understand. So, hey, if we detect that the impedance is too high, we literally will tell you, hey, we've seen that something wrong is with the impedance. Check, is your skin dry perhaps, or are the pads old? And then check the troubleshooting guide for more information. But here's the core piece of information you need to know to figure out exactly what to do. Or if the device is, maybe there are orange blocks instead of white blocks, or blue blocks in the actual physical device. So beyond just the BioWave Plus application, we also speak to and address issues that you may see and need to diagnose on the BioWave device as well.
Wonderful. Can athletic trainers track range of motion when using the app?
That is a really good question. And
Mhm.
no, we don't have anything in specifically to track range of motion. But it is interesting that there could definitely be impedance-based ways to figure out some things around that. So there's nothing precluding a future use or a future development sort of in that vein or in that spirit. As long as it's something we could detect with the device, we could learn to address it.
Mhm.
I'll jump in here also, Anya. So
course.
this is a great question, and it's almost sort of a great suggestion for some things to add in the future, as long as it can be done reliably, certainly with range of motion. So I'm making a note of that one. We can put that in the backlog to learn a little bit more about moving it in, as well as the idea of looking at, we'll say, some of the companion activities, like folks asked about ICE and some other adjacent therapies that might be done. And we can look at moving those in even more over time if the demand is high. So thank you these are both questions and also great suggestions as well. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Stu. Appreciate that. There's one more from the person here. I have it on the side. Who has access to patients' data? Is it accessible via the internet? That's a very good question to cover today.
I will take this one. So yeah, no, that's a great question. And the answer is we follow very, very strictly all the HIPAA compliance rules on this. And for us, it's very, very select few of HIPAA compliant folks inside at BioWave. And that's it. That's the simple answer. That's the whole answer. It is a very, very small list, just as it would be in any organization. So certainly nobody outside of BioWave. And even in BioWave, it is a very, very select few that has access.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah, just to extend that, naturally speaking, the user has access to their data as well. The clinician has access to the treatment, whether the user is compliant with the treatment. But that really is the extent of it. It's you, your doctor are like the core of the outside people, but only in those select situations. As a user, I can see my data in the app. As a clinician, I can see compliance in the app, or I could log on to the web and I could see compliance to therapies.
Yes, thank you, Kirk. I went right to in privacy mode, which is where I go to first with something like this. And so absolutely, of course, you know, the patients, the users, the athletes, and also the clinicians and trainers have access to it through the app itself. They obviously can see the data, but it doesn't go anywhere else.
Thank you. That's very important to cover. Yes, and that, I mean, there's one question which we covered. I heard you covered during the presentation. However, I guess some people maybe didn't hear that, so I will ask that question. Can I send my patient notifications and our messages regarding usage?
Yeah, and you know, because this really is the first generation, we wanted to keep messaging disciplined and really tightly controlled, so that you know the temptation is to bombard people with messages, and that really, you know, that does as much negative as potentially positive. So the short answer, yes, you absolutely can send a treatment reminder. It isn't a customizable treatment reminder today where you could say like, hey, Bob, what the heck is going on? Why aren't you doing this right? It is a, you know, you have 23 patients and 4 of them are not compliant. When you send that reminder, it goes to all of those users that are not compliant with a reminder that just says a much more generic, you know, hey, your clinician has noticed that you're out of compliance with your therapy. Log into the BioWave to get back on track. So yes, we can absolutely get messages out to those people who are non-compliant, abandoned treatments, and then especially for this version, keeping it tight and then being able to move forward and understand user behavior a little bit better, to understand both the clinician side of what other things do you want to communicate with them that are important, and from users, what other communication to you would be important, so that, you know, we can make sure that we're matching up, you know, users and clinicians with the features and functions that they both want.
Yeah, let me add to that as well. As Kirk said, we were very deliberate about limited ability to do that now so that we get this version out and understand what are the types of communication that are the most common. Because as most folks listening in know, there's what you cross a certain line, and dependent upon the content of the communication, the mechanisms through which that's really allowed, given HIPAA compliance and some other things, start to become really cumbersome for the athletes or the patients. And so if we understand let's say if we did almost a Pareto chart, right? What's the 80-20 rule of the communications that need to happen? There might be very, very simple ways we can do that without having to create those cumbersome experiences. Because as soon as it becomes cumbersome, folks actually don't pay attention to them. And so, for instance, is one of the most common things for a physician or a trainer to just say, "Hey, I saw this, great job." Well, maybe we do that with a like button, right? Or a thumbs up or a kudos like it's in Strava, right? And we don't have to worry about comments, that would have, personal health information and the rest of it. So it's a great question. It is a very specific category we have in mind, and we're going to go ahead and add the right things at the right time. But we want to do it in a way that's as, quite frankly, as adoptable as possible, right, for the people using the device. So very good. Good one, though.
Thank you, Stu. Thank you for elaborating on this a little bit further. Appreciate it. So those were all the questions that we had in our Q&A session. So thank you so much. Thank you, Kirk, one more time for presenting, walking us through the provider side of a BioWave new app. And Stu, thank you so much for joining us today, to making yourself available for our audience, answering questions. And I would like to let the audience know that that's a second webinar about BioWave Plus app. We hosted first one 2 months ago. It was geared towards the patient, the end user, athlete experience. So if you are interested in watching that webinar, it's available on our website, biowave.com/webinars. I would love to hear your feedback about that webinar as well, and that's part of our application. Thank you, and see you next month.